This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution, and we are back once again with our good friend Emma Garner, winemaker at 30 Bench up there on Beamsville Bench. And today we are tasting. This is the 2019 Small Lot Pinot Noir. Tell us a little bit about that, Emma, please.
Excellent. Absolutely. So as the name implies, it is from our small lot portfolio. So we make a relatively small amount of this wine. 2019, just to talk a little bit about that vintage. As you may or may not recall, it was a very cool summer. So grape ripening wise, it was a lengthy delay in the onset of harvest. It took us some time to get there, which is not always a bad thing, especially when you talk about grape varieties like Pinot. They don't tend to fare that well in the super hot years. So it's nice to get one of those cooler, slower ripening, because the flavors that develop are really quite phenomenal. So 19, bit cooler. We picked later than we have, especially in 18. And it's similar to what we picked in 17. Just the later part of September, early October. And we run the fruit to our 4-ton wood fermenters, which we manage, depending upon the year. How we manage the cap is really determined by what sort of tannins we're experiencing. So whether or not the seeds are still green. Obviously, we were able to get it to a great ripeness just because the fall was so sunny and warm and dry. So we were able to hang the fruit until we were able to pick it. Gently work the cap every day, and then drain and press the tank once we find it to be in that sweet spot. So for me, Pinot, I don't want to have a big bruise over wine. I don't know. There's a few of those out there, but it's not certainly the style that we're looking to make. So we still want, again, as with all of our wines and the essential nature of the acidity in the wine, we want that to be present, but in balance with everything else that's there as well. So we don't want the acid to make the tannins poke out too much, and we don't want the tannins to be so big and hard that it's going to take you 10 years before you can start to enjoy this wine. But that said, with the tannin and acid structure that we have, we've obviously got a wine that's got some great ageability also.
So you don't experiment with a whole cluster with this wine then?
We do actually. So 2019, a portion. So it was about 5%.
Right.
So in the wood fermenter, we'd put down just the handpicked. We handpick everything, but we handpick and not destemmed. About roughly, based on the math, it was about 5%. And then we would destem and crush on top. So we just sort of let it be for a little while. We tend to get about 2 wood fermenters worth. So one we'll let go wild, and then the one that we'll inoculate with a known yeast strain that tends to really help amplify the fruitiness on the nose, to really get you some of those cherry characteristics. And then what I find with the wild wood fermenter is that the aromatics are much more in that savory vein, but what you lose in the fruitiness, you gain in texture and breadth on the palate. So we end up more or less blending them together 50-50. It comes down to a barrel selection. It's 100% French oak, and we tend to age it in oak for about a year. So not a tremendous amount of time in barrel either. And again, we're not looking for something that's over the top in respect to oak. We want to respect the fruit. After all, that's what we work so hard to make in the vineyard. So we just want to make sure that shines through in the finished wine.
Going back to the vineyard, which clones are you working with here?
It's all 115.
It's all 115. Okay.
Yeah, and the vineyard was, that portion of the vineyard was planted in 2000. So they're starting to really, like, our Pinots, I've noticed in the last, I'd say 7-8 years, have really started to increase in intensity as well as quality. And Pinots, as you know, is a variety that's a difficult one to tame and understand. And every year it does reset the playbook more dramatically than other varieties. That we've really dialed in the vineyard now and have a good understanding of what it can give us.
So that's a combination of the age of the vineyard and that longer hang time then?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And our understanding of how to work the fruit as well, right? And like just really dialing in what works well, and given the vintage, what to do and what not to do. So as I was mentioning, you don't want to overwork the skins in a really hot, dry year, because you're going to get hard, firm tannins that we're not after.
And what kind of yields are you aiming for with this in an average vintage? Or does that just fluctuate all the time?
It fluctuates, but it's fairly consistent at the same time. So it's usually in that 1.8 to 2.5 tons per acre. So quite low. I think that's quite in line with our neighbors up on the bench as well.
It is interesting you mentioned the savory word, because that was the first thing that came to mind when I put my nose in this glass. And I remember tasting that I remember tasting that kind of savory element every single time I taste this wine. It's definitely like a predominant characteristic of this wine.
Hmm. And I find the 19 is still very young. Like it's one for consuming now is I would recommend decanting. Like it's something
Right.
that I'm
Yeah,
holding
yeah.
on to in my cellar for some time. But yeah, it's quite tight right now, but
Yeah.
it's also fun to see where it's going to go.
Well, it's still enjoyable. I mean, I mean, as much as I like aged wines, I do like seeing wines in their infancy as well, and just
Mhm.
the joy of seeing potential in a wine. As long as you have
Sure,
two bottles, because then you curse yourself
that's
for
right.
opening
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Open that too soon. Yeah, absolutely.
And how much does this sell for, Emma?
It sells for $35.
$35. Excellent, excellent. And this is available through the online portal, I guess.
Yes, it is. I would recommend going to the 30 Bench website.
Okay,
Yeah, so you can
brilliant.
order it online there. Or right now, obviously with curbside pickup as well, you can order it and come to the parking lot and pick it up as well, or even come in for a tasting.
There may be a slight chance, possible chance of seeing winemaker herself, Emma Garner,
Right,
crossing that
absolutely.
parking lot. This is wonderful. You know how much
Excellent.
I love my Pinot, so this is going to be a great addition to this evening's dinner. Emma Garner, thank you very much once again.
Enjoy. Thanks, Jamie.
Bye for now.